2, 2. Okay. That's easy to remember. 1, 1, 1.1, 1.1.22. Twam na,
Twam na,
twam na,
Twam na,
Sandarshito datra,
Sandarshito datra,
Sandarshito datra,
Sandarshito datra,
Twamna Sandarshito datra,
Twamna Sandarshito datra,
Twamna Sandarshito datra,
Twamna Sandarshito datra,
Dustaram,
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 Nistitir Satam,
Nistitir Shatam,
Nistitir Shatam,
Nistitir Shatam,
Nistitir Shatam,
Nistitir Shatam,
Dustaram Nistitir Shatam,
Dustaram Nistitir Shatam,
Dustaram Nistitir Shatam,
Dustaram Nishiti Saram,
Twamna Sandarshito datra,
Twamna Sandarshito datra,
Dustaram Nistitir Shatam,
Dustaram Nishiti
Shatam,
Kalim Sattvam Haram Pumsam,
Kalim Sattvaharam Pumsam,
Kalim Sattva Haram Pumsam,
Kalim Sattvaharam Pumsam,
Karnadhara Ivarnanam,
Karnadhara Ivarnamam,
Karnadhara Ivarnanam,
Karnadhara Ivarnamam,
Tvam,
Tvam,
your goodness.
your goodness.
Is that a literal translation?
Yes, you.
You. Okay. Naha,
Naha,
unto us.
Unto us,
Okay. Sandarshitaha,
Sandarshitaha,
meeting.
meeting,
Dhatra,
Datra,
by providence.
by providence.
So what is Dhatra?
Dhatar. Dhatar can mean providence or Lord Brahma.
Yeah.
Dhatar.
What else we got? Okay, yeah. Dushtaram,
Dushtaram,
insurmountable.
Insurmountable,
Nishti tir shatam,
Nistitir Shatam,
for those desiring to cross over.
for those desiring to cross over,
Kalim,
Kalim,
the age of Kali.
the age of Kali,
Sattvaharam,
Sattvaharam,
that which deteriorates the good qualities.
that which deteriorates the good qualities,
Pumsam,
Pumsam,
of a man.
of a man,
Karnadhara,
Karnadhara,
captain.
captain,
Eva,
Eva,
as
as
Arnavam,
Arnavam,
the ocean.
the ocean,
Twamna sandarshito datra, dushtaram nishtitir shitam, kalim sattvaharam pumsam, karnadhara ivarnam. So the sages of Naimisharanya, headed by Shonaka Rishi, says, we think that we have met your goodness by the will of providence, so that we may accept you as captain of the ship for those who desire to cross the difficult ocean of Kali, which deteriorates all of the good qualities of a human being. And here's the purport that Prabhupada wrote before he left India. The age of Kali is very dangerous for the human being. Human life is simply meant for self-realization. But due to this dangerous age, men have completely forgotten the aim of life. In this age, the lifespan will gradually decrease. People will gradually lose their memory, finer sentiments. It's okay. No, I don't lose. Okay. What do they lose here? We got here. The people we got. They lose their memory. Okay. Finer sentiments, strength, and better qualities. A list of the anomalies for this age is given in the 12th canto of this work. So this age is very difficult for those who want to utilize this life for self-realization. The people are so busy with sense gratification that they completely forget about self-realization. Out of madness, they frankly say that there is no need for self-realization because they do not realize that this brief life is but a moment in our great journey towards self-realization. The whole system of education is geared to sense gratification. And if a learned man thinks it over, he sees that the children of this age are being intentionally sent to the slaughterhouses of so-called education. Learned men, therefore, must be cautious of this age. And if they at all want to cross over the dangerous ocean of Kali, they must follow the footsteps of the sages of Naimisharanya and accept Sri Sutta Goswami or his bona fide representative as the captain of the ship. The ship is the message of Sri Krishna in the shape of Bhagavad Gita or Srimad Bhagavatam. Mama Sandarshita Daratra Dushtadam Vishtitir Shitam Kalim Sattva Haram Pumsam Karnadara Ivarnam.
Hare Krishna, everybody. Very warmly welcome His Holiness.
Oh, warmly.
His Holiness Hanumatpresaka Maharaj and all the wonderful devotees. Welcome to Sri Govardhan Dham. We are all sitting at the lotus feet of Giriraj Ji, and we're very fortunate we'll get a chance to hear from Maharaj, the Srimad Bhagavatam.
So today, we're actually, our topic today, right, was what is an educated man? You know, it's a nice topic. You notice I didn't say what is an educated person. Right away, we're creating different subjects for topics. It's a very big topic, and I especially wanted to talk about it because, my background is in formal academic education. I went to the university. I started in electrical engineering. And then electrical engineering was actually electrical engineering. It wasn't software. And before I ever went into the high school, I was building 5-stage super heterodyne AM radios with over-the-counter 12 AU-74 vacuum, dual-pin towed vacuum tubes. It's like a dinosaur, yeah, and so on. But then I very quickly talked to the teachers and so on. You can see it's just making money. That's the whole purpose, no? That's why you go to school, right? To make money, to usually to find a partner, marriage partner and stuff. I was at the Bhaktivedanta College in Bangladesh. The Hanumatpresaka Swami's there, principal then. And he was talking about how the students graduated with their bachelor's degrees. What was it, theology? Taking degrees in theology. Why don't you have a seat? I feel kind of like the monkeys on the shore with some pati above there. Gonna eat me. So he started the whole Bhaktivedanta College in Bangladesh, and one of our premier projects in education, trying to develop our own schools, And then it was graduation time and marriages. People were getting married. He said he was just like, he thought I'm such a fool. I didn't realize that this is what's going to happen. You're going to school together, you meet each other, and okay, you have to head into Varnashram, same lifestyle, everything else. And Radhika Raman informed us that usually when you go to a university, they try and get the students married, because then when they graduate, when they give their alumni donations, they'll both be giving from the same school like that. There's a whole process here, Yeah. So my own background in that naturally kind of gravitated towards this academic formal education process in ISKCON. I started electrical engineering, I realized it was very limited, realized that physics was limited. And this time, okay, Marshall McLuhan. Anybody here know Professor Herbert Marshall McLuhan? Aha! Are you from Canada? No, Montreal. You know Montreal? Marshall McLuhan? What are some of his ideas or phrases? You know, like the global village, the media is the message. He was very prominent back in the 1960s. When this whole encounter was happening between, you know, East and West with the Vietnam War, everything else. It was a very, very educational period, the 1960s, and Prabhupada arranged the boat, with Prabhupada on the boat, could arrive at just that moment. So, he was studying media, different media, like a telegraph, telephone, communication media, and how people money, and how people communicate, all these things like that. And it was revealing so many things about the culture and about things that we're not conscious of, how we're developing things. You know? But his point was that one of the greatest forms of education has always been war.
Mm-hmm.
You know, war has been one of the greatest forms of education. You know? In the 1930s, when World War I was going on, I guess it was 1930, maybe 1920s or something. Yeah. What's it been like? 1930s? 31 or 32 or something. You know, yeah. 1939 was the start of the Second World War. The United States, I think it was something like 90% of all adult white male Americans in the United States were self-employed. And 90% of all adult white male Americans were self-employed, which means they had basically agricultural thing, they had their land, they were getting it from their parents and stuff, and so on, you know. Very interesting. And it was actually the height of American economy. Went down after that, before that. And so then when World War I came, and it was a European war, you know, there was a British guy and something with a French guy or something, and they were all arguing about the wars in Europe. And it was American, they were criticizing, and you people always got involved in the wars too late. And the French guy was saying, well, maybe you guys started them too soon. Yeah. But it's a whole tradition of war. And if you look at the history of Europe, it's just like continuous. The 100 Years' War, the War of the Roses. It's just continuous, you know. Yeah. And maybe because the atmosphere, the climate is not so good, you have to fight for food and everything else. You're put by your karma into a situation which is not sattvic. So anyway, then the First World War started, and who was it? It was, you know, Germany and I guess Austria against, you know, whatever and so on. There's a whole history behind the thing. And so then finally the United States was getting involved because we were blowing up United States ships and different things. So they sent an entire expeditionary force up, I think something like, you know, 40,000, 60,000, 100,000 American soldiers to go and fight there under General Pershing. Yeah. And for them, many of these people were all farm boys, you know, from the farms and stuff like that. They didn't have electricity or things like that. They were just living in Saturday night entertainment was to sit around and figure out a new name for the dog. And talk and think something that, yeah, very simple, rustic people. But then they went to Europe and everything else, and then they came back, and there was a very, very popular song. It was, how you gonna keep 'em down on the farm now that they've seen Paris? They've seen, after Paris, you know, then that was it. They would, hey, forget naming the cat on Saturday night, you know. So war has always produced educated men, right? Do we agree with that? War has produced educated people. It's a whole topic you can investigate. Yeah. I mean, what is, in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna gives all the different things that are the process by which we acquire knowledge. He gives accepting a guru, accepting these things, one after another. But he says, Janma, Mritya, Jara, Vyadi,
Dukkha Doshan
Darshanam. Yeah. And these are the real impetus for education, right? This is why people want to learn something, because they're suffering from Janma, Mritya, Jara, Vyadi. You know, it's unavoidable, everybody, you know, my throat's giving me problems now, I have a little burning in my nose, you know. Once you pass 50 or 60, automatically your body is, you know, so much problem. You know? And so, when you go to a war, these problems, what is it called, adhyatmika klesha, daivika klesha, these things in a war really just come right in your face. You know, it's just so many things about how war, you know, changes people's consciousness and everything else and so on. So he was right. You know, war has always been one big way of educating people. I mean, the United States learned so much about Asian consciousness in the Vietnam War with Japan and everything else and so on. And also with, with Vietnam. You know, so many things. The education was there. You know. So that's just one way of making educated people. Is that a good idea? Are you training soldiers here? Instructors to go off and to teach people the way of to bring Indian culture to you and civilize you. Yeah. Nope. So that's a nice topic. Yeah. In our background, we started electrical engineering, changed to biological engineering. I was doing surgery on rats, live to tell about it. And then, okay, physical sciences, life sciences, and you can do this in the United States. So I changed to psychology, and by then I had to graduate. I was looking for, some more subtle knowledge, physical knowledge, and life sciences. But all the life sciences were based basically on chemistry. That life is a product of chemicals, chemical machines. Then it goes to psychology, and psychology was also, again, mechanistic. We were trying to explain things in terms of different conditioned reactions and everything else. And I started improvisational theater, and that was very high. That's really, I would say, the highest form of education available in Western culture is improvisational theater and their tradition and so on. Very, very insightful. But then I graduated and stuff. And then eventually, came in contact with Prabhupada and got involved in this tradition. Then, of course, eventually we ended up with the Bhaktivedanta Institute in Bhakti Damodar Maharaj and trying to develop these programs. But everybody there they were all chemists. They were all chemists. Bhakti Damodar was a chemist. Rajahansa was a chemist. Grantarai was a chemist. And they had a cookbook. Bhaktivedanta Institute in San Francisco, they had their cookbook. And they would talk about it. I think it's about 20 more milligrams of sugar. They had scale. Quantitative transfer. Cookbook for the halva. The formula book for halva. And the cooking tasted like that too. It was okay, but a little flavor. So much education, and so I was thinking maybe today also because here we have the Mahavidyalaya, okay, and I'll represent the Anjana Sutta Academy, okay, which is our very esoteric organization. Then we have people from he's on the advisory board of the North American Institute for Oriental and Classical Studies, and he's on the board of directors of the North American Institute for Oriental and Classical Studies. Have you heard about us? Not really. So the Bhaktivedanta Institute was aimed towards science, preaching. Prabhupada designed it for making this interface between science and the Vedas, and fighting these misconceptions which are being introduced by the rascal scientists and so many things. The predominating philosophy of ontology, epistemology, praxeology, what can we know, how do we know it, what all these things. The predominating philosophy now is
Science.
Science. Yeah, science. This is there with. And of course, it's subtle. It's not even being presented where you can argue about it or think about it. It's just put into you where you don't even really think about it or anything else, and you grow up just accepting it and then going to work to promote it, and so on. Then after that, what are other philosophies in the world?
Secular humanism.
Huh?
Humanists.
Management, yeah.
Oh, no, I'm saying humanist.
Humanists, okay, humanists.
Postmodernism?
Postmodernism. Wow, okay, what is postmodernism?
The idea that there's no grand unifying story or idea that brings everything together, that everything is relative
Yeah.
to each individual.
You do your thing, I do my thing. Yeah, if anybody tries to present their ideas as being more predominant, maybe, you know, yeah, what is it? So it's Unitarians? Are Unitarians fit right into?
They're influenced by that idea.
Yeah. They're also humanists too. You know. Humanist idea is that man is the measure of all things. And the human beings are the everything else and so on, which was very much, yeah. Postmodernists. Yeah. A Unitarian is somebody who's looking for God and hopes he doesn't find him. Surrender at that point. Yeah. So different philosophy, you know. So yeah, but these are these philosophies? In a technical sense of the word, they aren't philosophies, are they really? That's not, are they really?
They're
Psychology.
worldviews, perspectives on the
Yeah,
world.
because the word philosophy is philosophy. You know, and boy, it's bizarre. I've met graduate students in science working at a PhD who don't know what the word PhD means. Yeah, and somebody that has a PhD, you know, he's like a physicist, he's a PhD, and he doesn't know what it means the doctor of philosophy, but he doesn't know what the word doctor means. And you asked him, how many classes have you taken on philosophy, Mr. PhD? He said, well, I had one. He's a doctor in philosophy, but he hasn't taken any classes in philosophy. You know? So basically, usually they're laboratory technicians, what they are. And they have some technique and some things like that. Very well. Yeah. So it's a whole thing about, you know, what is an educated person. And Prabhupada is saying here that this modern educational institution is just nothing but slaughterhouses. It's not even like, you know, a little bit off the mark. It's like so far. This is exactly the opposite. One time I was in Boise, Idaho. You ever heard of Boise, Idaho? You haven't heard of Boise, Idaho? It's a very famous place. You know, he's from Boise, Idaho. Yeah, they're famous for potatoes. That's their great thing. Boise, Idaho. It's a nice, very clean place. It's very it's right back from the East Coast, West Coast, of the United States. The mountains, very clean, and a lot of Mormons there. Mormons, I think, have a good philosophy. I think their idea of reality and stuff is pretty good. You know, yeah. And they also their praxeology of how to apply it is, you know, pretty good. Yeah. If you meet Mormon preachers, you know, you're gonna they're ready. You know, they're not afraid to talk with you and argue their philosophy and culture with you in many cases. Yeah. So anyway, your mother was there and Gopal was there. I think you were off in Oxford, you know, shining your shoes. Yeah. And there was one teacher who was a Mexican professor.
Oh yes.
What was his name?
I forget the name. But
Yeah. But he was teaching professors, teaching teachers, right? What's that called? Something you teach teachers. Yeah.
Education department.
Yeah. They were people who wanted to become teachers, you know, afterwards, and so he was part of that whole department, you know, teaching them. And many of them were adults, quite a few, you know. And so then they asked me to come and then give a special thing on teaching in a multi-ethnic classroom. Teaching in a multi-ethnic classroom. Because then many of them were going to have like people from Indian origin and stuff in their classrooms, and they wanted the teachers to have like, you know, one day of hearing, you know, what kind of different attitudes there are and so on. You know. So we went there. It was a pretty big room. We walked this around the side of the room, maybe like 50, 60 people and stuff, you know. So I made a presentation, and it was that's good. I was talking about the different attitudes and relations between the boys and girls and so on, and then, you know, the basic cultural idea of we're not the body, which is very prominent, I think, in many Indians. I remember when I came here in 1996 for the World Congress, for Prabhupada's centennial, I think the celebration, we were in Calcutta for 1 year, and some big poet died, you know. And so they had his body was there in Delhi, you know, right on some dais, and big ministers were coming and everything else, and there was, you know, flowers decorating, and they were sitting there making speeches about him. Then one of the ministers got up when somebody else was talking and went over and just kind of adjusted his head like that on the corpse, you know. And nobody thought, oh yes, man, this guy's, if you do that in America, United States, people just go, they freak out. He's touching a dead man. It's like, Indians, it's a dead body. You know, Americans, United States, it's a dead person. You know, very different education. When I was in Calcutta, they were bringing out a new candy bar. It was chocolate on the outside and orange kind of, you know, stuff on the inside. And it said, body and soul, the best candy bar. So you see that it's embedded, no? Prabhupada says even Rickshawala believes in reincarnation, karma, and these kind of things. You know, that perspective is there. Okay. So we're having our science congress.
The education professor.
Huh? Oh yeah, thank you. Okay, my short-term memory is going. I've learned that. Yeah. So anyway, I made this presentation on this back, and it was working well, and everybody's very happy. He was very happy. This is the best we've had on this, and I think our teachers are pretty much informed now how the difference in attitudes and things like that, and so on. You know, yeah. And then he started talking. Of course, he knows your family, everything else. He said, oh, and so you're here today with this is Ruda. She brought, you know, whatever, you know, Hanumatpresaka and so on. Thank her and stuff. And by the way, your son is here, right? You know. He said, yeah, this is Gopal. And you see, was he a student here? You know. Yeah. Oh yeah, he just graduated. Oh, did he do well? Gopal was also valedictorian.
Yeah. Top 10 scholar.
Dual major.
Yeah.
Engineering and.
No, one major. Electrical engineering.
Okay, so he graduated. First place in electrical engineering, was the valedictorian, which was the best student and so forth. So, oh, really, valedictorian, you know. And the only one son? He said, no, I have another son. Was he also here? He's also here. Yeah. Did he also graduate? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Was he did also? Yeah. Also valedictorian. Well, where is he now? Well, he's in Oxford University. Oh, that's a good school. Yeah. So he knows everything. You know? And he said, oh, they must be very bright boys. And your mother said, he said, no. They're intelligent, you know. Oh, they must have had a really good, you know, preparations, you know, thing, and they graduated so young and everything else. He said, oh no, I taught them about home, you know, homeschooling. Oh, really? So then he says to all the students, he said, see, this is what I'm telling you. American education is not education, it's stupidification. You know? The purpose of the American education system is to make people stupid. So they come out, they'll be satisfied with either beer or marijuana, you know, you have your choice, and video games or movies, you know, and they'll do some same stupid job every day, like a very kind of intelligent robot, and come home and have a little sex, a little intoxication, some little entertainment, and they'll go back the next day and they'll think, well, this is okay. This is like, you know, yeah. And then they'll retire at 65 years old, they'll get a pension, and they'll die at 72 years old. It's, you know, for the employers and everything else, this is the education they want. Papa says it's a slaughterhouse. It's designed to use people to exploit them, to eat their bodies, to eat their souls, to eat their minds. It's designed that way. It's set up. And many times the teachers are conscious of this, no? The teachers many times don't like the system. You know, and they have efforts to try and fight against it, really, until they become also just, what else are we going to do? You know, or somebody will get burned out. I mean, that's how many people stay in the career their whole life.
Mm-hmm.
You know. So this is the situation. And do you still have your primary school?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're still working on it. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so we're developing primary education. Professor Gupta is now head of the Department of History at Logan State University from, not Idaho.
Utah.
Utah, the state of Utah. close we got here, anything else. Yeah. So we're interested in education. This is Prabhupada. If you look at the 7 goals or 9 goals of ISKCON, I think 30% of them or something, 40% are education. You look at the preface, the only Sankirtan process that Prabhupada mentions in the preface is teaching in the schools and universities, and introducing it in the classrooms and stuff. That's what he's talking about. And, you know, maybe it was difficult. You know, he didn't give up on it, but he saw that the best reaction was happening on the street with hippies. You know, making hippies into brahmacharis and going out and making an army and preaching that way. You know, and that was the best process. And hippies are our best customers and stuff. And they got all the books out, and those met other people, and some people started, and then he started different academic efforts. You know, the Bhaktivedanta Institute, the Srudamara Maharaj, Adaputta, other people, and so on. You know. I was thinking about getting involved with the Bhaktivedanta Institute. I'd already been through science, I had enough of it, you know. But it seems to be important. Maharaj was there in San Francisco, so I was asking other devotee, I asked Tamal Krishna Maharaj, is this scientific preaching important? And if you know Tamal Krishna Maharaj, you know, he looked at me with his Tamal Krishna Maharaj's gaze and said, you know, Prabhupada said over and over again for his entire last year, scientific preaching is my most important preaching program. You idiot. Yeah. Then I met Ravindra Sarup, and he was friendly about it, but he said the same thing. The Prabhupada very much. You know, I told my joke before about Prabhupada walking along. It was funny. They were in Hawaii, and Prabhupada was walking along, morning walk. He was talking all about the rascal scientists and how they're destroying the world. People, abortion, all these things are coming because it's philosophy. Horrible things are happening, you know. My friend Bharata was walking with Prabhupada, and the rest of the devotees fell back a little bit. And Prabhupada said to himself, he'd been talking about the rascal scientists, he said, "Goddamn bitches of sons." Of course, the actual correct phrase is "goddamn sons of bitches," but Prabhupada's English. So need to be corrected. You know, publish these things. Yeah, but he, you know, he didn't say it publicly, but he even said that. Sometimes he got very heavy about preaching. He said, "You're educating people so you can go out and kick on their face with boot." He said, "Kick on their face with hobnail boot." You know. Then always there's a little laughter afterwards. Because Sadhaputta was more into doing that. Sadhaputta had this direct thing of just, you know, knock them down thing, you know. And Maharaj was always talking about, you know, going in with the cultural program and stuff. So he wrote a Vyasa Puja offering about him. He said, you always see whenever Prabhupada said that, it says, parentheses, the devotees were laughing and stuff. Prabhupada, you know. And Prabhupada directly said one time, he said, I can say these things, I can talk like this, you know, and stuff, but you cannot do this when you're going out there. You have to have a different approach to try and educate people, make educated men. So we're trying to develop with our NEOS, the North American Institute for Oriental and Classical Studies. It developed because I couldn't work with the Bhaktivedanta Institute because it was all hard science and I had enough of that. Even I asked Ravindra Sarup, you're working, you know, you think it's the most important preaching program, well, why don't you why don't you get your PhD in physics, you know, rather than in, what did it, like history, was it? You did it?
Religious studies.
Religious studies. And he said, because I can't stand it. Yeah. And I realized, okay, I surrendered. That's what happened at some point. Sishtas te hum, that's, you know, at that point, you know, Duryodhana and everybody else should just, you know, pack up and head home. The battle's over, you know. Ravana kidnapped Sita and she's screaming, Lakshman, Lakshman. And her cries were so piteous that the universe went off of its axis. The whole universe went out of spin properly because she was, the demigods, the animals, everybody was just, you know, suffering. They all wanted to help her, but they were so afraid of Rama they did nothing, except for Jatayu. And so then everybody was just horribly in this consciousness. And Brahma said, he said, yes, this is terrible. This is terrible. He said, but our purpose is certain. Ravana is a dead man. It's finished. He said, now it's just a matter of just stand in line. It's done, it's finished. He's a dead man. Yeah, yeah. It's the same way too, we were trying to get out and establish these different preaching programs, understanding what is the basis, what do we have to do to accomplish these things, and so on. What are we trying to accomplish? You know? So with I surrendered, okay, Arjuna, then everything changed, my whole attitude. Then I was, okay, I'm going to do it. Then I began to realize how I fit in. What was my place in the educational atmosphere, you know? And I didn't go all the way to a PhD in like the Sadapuda and stuff, you know? Yeah, right. Okay, anybody here have a doctorate? If you have a doctorate, raise your right hand. See, I'm testing you, so you can do it, He's got a doctorate. Yeah. So doctorate means you had to produce your thesis, right? That's the big thing. Okay. Now the thesis means that you've got to, okay, what was your problem? See, he knows it. That's the key word, the jargon word. You got to have your problem, right? Yeah, yeah.
The problem was the beginning of Vedanta in the Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition. How did Vedanta begin? What was its origin?
But was that too broad, or did you have to focus on come down more to more focus?
No, that was okay because it pointed to a single author.
Okay.
In the
And
single
what did you use
century.
for text? Did you use Sandarbhas?
Yes.
You used all 6?
No, just Paramatma Sandarbha, the third one.
And did you use the whole thing?
No, just one Anucheda.
Yeah. And there's no philosophy in India. One school, one philosopher, one set of works, one book, one part is sufficient to get a PhD in philosophy from Oxford University. Yeah, and they were happy, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, yes. So this is what Bhagavad Gita calls knowledge in the mode of ignorance. Knowledge in the mode of goodness, knowledge in the mode of not passion, knowledge in the mode of ignorance means you're expert at one thing, one tiny thing like that. And then I know, right? Yeah. Marshall McLuhan said, an expert is somebody who never makes the smallest mistake as he proceeds towards the grand illusion. Pilot flying his airplane, so many difficult things, goes through the fog, everything else lands, and he says, we arrived in Delhi. Nobody said, but we're supposed to be in Calcutta. We're on time. Yes, yeah. Also brings back Mullah Nasruddin's story, you know? The mullah was outside looking under the lamp, right, you know this story? And his friend said, well, what did you lose? And he said, I dropped my key. And his friend started looking and said, what did he say? He said, did you drop it here? No, I dropped it over near the door. And he said, well, why are you looking here? There's more light. You get the process. So this is modern education. Yeah, the PhD means, you know, and I can other things too, what PhD means. Prabhupada says one place, plow department. PhD means plow department. Yeah. Actually, what it means literally is teacher of love of wisdom. Philos is love, Sophie is wisdom, doctor is teacher. So it means Bhakti Vedanta. Bhakti Vedanta, it's the same thing. Teacher of love of wisdom. First is Brahmachari, bachelor, and then Goswami, Sannyasi, Swami. It's the same. The tradition is the same. They've lost it. So then how to form different institutions, you know, for communicating and working together on the project. What is the goal of education? Anybody have some citation here now? Our Prabhupada says self-realization. Okay, that's kind of general. I'm thinking of somebody, some teacher. He was teaching some people in a clandestine atmosphere. And then probably the purports describe what is the purpose of education. His name begins with a P. Ah! Yeah. And the purports probably says that the purpose of education is to revive our relationship with Krishna in one of the rasas. Adoshada, Sadhusanga. This is education, no? Yeah, when we're talking about this, the teachers, you have your students are on different levels, but we're concerned if we can actually identify, and you may end up with some students, maybe 8 years old, but you can, if you know this person seems to be beyond Rati and Ruchi, you know, they need to start associating with whatever Goswamis and people like that. Yeah, they can pick up their arithmetic and their reading and their writing and stuff. They need that, but the education is where they ask. So we have to be able to identify if somebody is in the Doshvada, Sadhusanga, Bhajana Kriya, Anartha Nivritti, Nishta, Ruchi, Asaktis. Yeah. And then we have to be able, when we're talking to people, to understand, which is basically Kanista Adhikari, Madhyama Adhikari, Uttama Adhikari, because different medicine, different educational things are required. One lecturer in New York, one hippie guy or something was just making all these disturbances and stuff, and Sunday feast. And Prabhupada said, why are you making this disturbance talking to people? He said, because I can't understand what you're saying, So Prabhupada looked at him and said, bring prasad. Getting the prasad and listening, and then actually beginning the prasad and was making, stimulating in the mode of goodness and so on. So that's the goal. You agree? That's the goal of the Mahavidyalaya. Yeah? Prema? How many people have you graduated from Prema? How could we forget it, no? What is Shastric education? What is the Bhakti Shastri degree? Is that a Doshrada, Sadhusanga, Bhajana Kriya? Vaidhi Bhakti. We're taking it as basically as Vaidhi Bhakti, and you're getting a logical understanding, which is jnana. Right? You're memorizing verses, which is karma. You're acquiring things. Yeah. But Prabhupada says Bhakti Vedanta, Bhakti Vaibhava, you should go through it again. You kind of missed that when you give the diplomas. No, you should all the Bhakti Vaibhava means first 6 cantos and all the previous books. So our recommendation is that when you do Bhakti Vaibhava, then you read, for example, Surrender Unto Me, right? You study that then. You'll hear Bhakti Vaibhava students read Dorijan's book, Surrender Unto Me. And then when you're teaching now, you know how you can teach it nicely at the Bhakti Shastri level. I mentioned this before. We were with Atul Krishna and everybody with the board of examiners and trying to work on the diplomas, Bhakti Shastri, Bhakti Vaibhava, Bhakti Vedanta, Bhakti Sarvabhauma. And I suggested a good standard is that Bhakti Shastri, you should be able to defend yourself from philosophical deviations. Okay? Bhakti Vaibhava, you should be able to defend other people from philosophical deviations. Bhakti Vedanta, you should be able to go out and defeat philosophical deviations. Bhakti Sarvabhauma, you should be able to start your own philosophical deviation. Okay? Yeah. Yes. Or else, we got Bhakti Vaibhava, Bhakti Sarvabhauma, you're tempted to start your own philosophical, which actually is probably what's going to happen. The example is you become no more than your teacher. Maya comes to you and says, oh, you figured it all out. You've understood that you have to renounce sense gratification. If I would get it, you have to renounce sense gratification and become purified. And now you get the supreme prize. You become my husband. Become God. And that's like Maya's last thing. Yeah, this renunciation, so you become God. And I know directly yoga schools that directly talk about this. They directly say it. Yeah. So anyway, we have the North American Institute. So that's why we started it, because then eventually there was no preaching going on in the what do you call it, the more liberal arts areas, psychology and humanities and stuff. There's no institution for it. But understanding that, yeah, you're going to be teaching psychology to show, to illuminate the scientific perspective. If you're dealing with, it's interesting, psychology is based upon, physics is based upon, but what is the epistemology of science? Rational?
Empiricism.
Yeah, rational empiricism. Direct perception and using rational thought, which is basically mathematics, to understand. That's what they do. That's what they're proud of. Pratyaksha and? Anumana. Aroha?
Aroha.
Aroha. Yeah. Sweet. Yeah. And you've got to make friends with them before the logical stuff. Raj is learn from Dr. Sudhamana Maharaj, learn from Prabhupada. The formula is first a very nice reception, so they feel honored and dignified, like Lord Chaitanya was Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. 7 days until he felt, okay, the guy is like, okay. And then, nice prasad. That's the formula. People feel nice and you have one prasad and you talk in a friendly fashion. So after that, so then you can start talking about philosophical things. Some people are different, but in generally speaking, that's what we're doing. It's not like we just come in and we want to have arguments and debates. Yeah, some few people on that level, but most people really, they're just people and they want to have, belong to a culture. They want to, the scientists want to impress the girls, and the girls want to catch a scientist for a husband. It's a very social atmosphere. The logic is not really what concerns them, the money. So, if we're trying to keep our goals in mind and approach it from different directions, finish here. So with NEOS, so we started the North American Institute for Oriental and Classical Studies. With that name, you can do whatever you want to do. North American Institute for Oriental and Classical Studies. Okay. It started because we were working in South America with the Institute for Oriental and Occidental Classical Studies. So I thought, okay, just make it the North American Institute. And we say NEOS because when people write checks out, all we have to do is write out NEOS. Donate. And we've done very well. We did programs with the National, what do they call it? What is it, National? It's National Library? No. In Calcutta. That was that's the Indian National Library?
Yeah.
National Library. We did it there with them. The contribution of ancient India towards making a better world. And we had Justice of the Supreme Court inaugurating, and so many people, 4 or 5 days, and it was just complete success. So many universities wanted us to go and do someplace else. The killer too, boy. And we've done programs with, who else? The National Library in Peru and different universities and so on. So we've done a good job in what we've been doing. Now we're trying to pass it over to the next generation, and it looks like it's going to maybe survive. If it doesn't, that's okay. I think we tried our best, Looks like so NEOS. Okay, so in this whole process, we came in contact with Hector Behar. He was a big revolutionary in South America as a young man and fighting the evil capitalists and all this kind of stuff. He already had a degree in law. Very nice person, very sincere. And the capitalists in South America were doing horrible things at that time, just so you know. I can tell you some of the stuff that the corporations were doing. They were just like, terrible. The CIA was torturing people and everything. It was, so there was a lot of justification at that time in terms of, the environment. But anyway, he ended up in prison. Then he kept on writing. So he's part of a whole kind of community in South America, very intellectual people who are very, very intelligent. They're appreciating these different perspectives and stuff. So with him and many other people, we've been developing our process, of bringing people to India. A lot of very successful programs. So he's a general. It's nice to have a general in the community. It's nice to have a cook. It's nice to have software engineers. It's also nice to have a general. Bertrand Russell said, the king is like the person in the family that everybody else decides should buy the meat. Yeah, this is his idea of the king. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so the general. Yeah, I know. Okay. But so many times he was given this very good strategy on how to organize things. So he said, yeah, if you're going to have your institution, okay, you got to have a periodical, right? Otherwise, you're not going to be able to. It's not going to pull itself together. The web page is kind of like the heart. Your web page is there. That's where you put it together. People come and they see who you are. This kind of stuff. And your periodical is what is the backbone. The BTG right away from the first things. And all the backbone anatomically. How many things? He's the doctor of anatomy. Teaches anatomy. How many things hang physically on the backbone? Are dependent upon the backbone for the
Muscles.
They're all kind of through the muscles and through everything else. Yeah. So even anatomically, what to speak of functionally, not so much. The nervous system is the only thing. But The vascular system is also
The
tied into the
system
nervous,
is there.
huh?
The nervous system is inside the back.
Inside, but the vascular system is on,
In front of it.
yeah, so it's also,
Yeah, taking
yeah,
us-
yeah. So you're periodical, you say periodical, because it doesn't have to be every month or every week, it's whatever, but it should be, you know. The first copy people get, they'll go, what is this? Another magazine, another institute, volume 1, number 1. There's a tremendous number of volume 1, number 1s. Tremendous number. Volume 1, number 2 starts to be a little bit more rare. So the second time people say, oh, the second volume. Same, yeah, okay. Third one they go, oh, hey, this is the third thing. Yeah, what's this about? Okay. Fourth one they say, well, it's still here, you know. This is what Hector told us. The fourth one they start to actually look at the content. The fifth one then they actually have to make some decision about the content. The sixth one is where they finally, you know, committed and they want to join and start subscribing and that kind of stuff. So you got to realize that you're going to have to hang in there for 6 issues, right? Circulating it before you really, it takes off and stuff. If you're lucky. Yeah? Okay. But then you've got to, you can communicate with your people, you know, what other media too. And then, okay, we're focusing. What is NEOS focusing on? What are the projects we're working on?
We just finished the compilation of the book on Tava Pache on network instruction. Then you are compiling the movie on the diary of a traveling creature.
Yeah, so I'm doing these projects, you know, yeah. But what were you doing? No, he has a DBA in NEOS.
Yes. We are into
Goloka culture.
yes.
NEOS does business as Goloka culture, and he has a project, okay? So that's the idea, is that we've been, especially, I would say you want to bring it down to a very, very tight thing. NEOS right now, because of my inspiration, you know, and other things too, that goes from the people, is really focusing on science, psyche, and spirituality, okay? The encounter of Carl Jung with the Bhakti Siddhanta of traditional India. And that's a PhD thesis, isn't it? That's a good one, though. Actually, got to the point where, yeah. And we've developed it nicely. Prabhupada said of all the Western philosophers, Carl Jung had the most sense. And it's a very active community. And they're very healthy people. It's just growing. It has followers, young people involved, and their ideas are going out. And so if you can reach them, and then Bhakti Siddhanta was born when? What year?
1876.
Huh?
1876.
1876? Huh? Or 74?
74.
Okay, yeah. Carl Jung was born 1875. They love synchronicities, Jungians, yeah. So Bhakti Siddhanta was growing up, active, all during the industrialization of Asia. And he was saying, this is going to cause problems, don't accept it. Okay. And Carl Jung was active all during the industrialization of Europe and the Occident, and many things. And they're both acharyas in that sense, you know. And so when you start looking at the two of them, you can see how they both were pointing out. Jung was saying this is going to be a problem in Bhakti Siddhanta, but now you can see it from both perspectives. And the resources from India then can be brought over to the United States and to Europe, and the resources in Europe can be brought over the other direction. And they both were realizing the limitations of their own cultures and the good qualities of their cultures. Right? Prabhupada said one time, he said, in 100 years, India will never catch up with the Western technology. Right? Yeah, it's not designed for it. If you do it, you'll just kill yourself. That's all that will happen if you're going to catch up. China is catching up by trashing their rivers and water resources to such a degree that it's just the whole place is just, practically speaking, uninhabitable now. Economists are looking for China to hit the wall pretty soon. You know, the Great Wall of China, right? They built that. Then afterwards, when the laborers were old, they killed them. You haven't got to maintain it, they just killed them. Yeah, they can't do that now. So the entire workforce, which built their thing and industrialized, made the modern world, scientific world, has to go be maintained now. So it's going to be a big drain on their economy, the way it's set up. Yeah. So anyway, we be very intelligent. We can see things. We can help people. We can offer advice on a very practical level. You know? So that's what Neos, kind of our focus, and Ramdaridari has developed Goloka culture, which is doing songbooks and educational programs. So Hector Behar says, you may have so many things you want to cover, but you can't cover them all, right? What are you trying to do? What is Mahavidyalaya's goal? You know, if Modi signs up for your classes, that's your perfection. I'd like to do my Bhakti Shastri. Okay, you can do it, sir. But what is this? He said, talking about these things, and you should have to do it again and again. Not that you do it one time and you do the work and you get some goal there, but you have to again stop and again, because things change. You know, you've got to go over it every year. You have a purpose. Do you have a purpose statement? You do one? Is it like something you can express in 3 sentences, or what? Have you forgotten what it is? Yeah.
We are focusing on, our focus is on establishing Srimad Bhagavatam as the highest principle and spreading its, spreading it globally.
Okay, global, incrementing global education in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But it's, it's just short. Then after that, okay. So his point is that, for example, Vastu. Are you interested in Vastu? Yeah, in the Bhagavatam. The Bhagavatam, so many things. The Bhagavatam talks about social sciences. It talks about physical sciences. There's so many areas in there. If you really know the Bhagavatam, you start to know these things. Is the sun closer to the earth than the moon? Do you believe God is a giant red hog? Is it true that women are less intelligent? Is it true we never went to the moon? Is it true that black people are sinful? Yeah. So all the, we start, it's a big deal. The Prabhupada's idea was that you should have your Bhakti by Baba diploma by the time you take sannyas, right? At what age does Prabhupada recommend sannyas? It's in the first canto. It's actually, he says. This is 1:17:38. I have a memory device. 1:17:38. It's the 4 regulative principles of their punishment and reward of Kali. There's a communist manifesto right there. If we ruled the world, all women, all girls would be married by 16, guys would be married by 25 or take sannyas. You have to give, it's like, the communist manifesto, but it's just, we did an interfaith dialogue at one time, that kind of stuff, and the Jews and everybody else were there, and they were looking at it, yeah, okay, we could live with that. But it's very definite ideas, very clear ideas. So Prabhupada says all the boys should be married by 25 years old or take sannyas. So it means basically you should finish your Bhakti by Baba diploma by 25 years old. Yeah? And what do you do for the rest of your life? Yeah. So Bhakti by Baba to me is just, and Bhakti Vedanta are just kind of like overviews. That's all you're trying to do. You go through and you see certain things, you get perspectives and everything else. And then after that, you understand, okay, my nature is more, cultural anthropology, somebody else is, and then you go to Bhagavatam again, right? And then you start to go into certain areas. Vastu, Danda Veda, Gandharva Veda, Arga Veda, they're all coming from the same Sankhya, right? Unless you know the Sankhya, none of these things make any sense. Vastu doesn't make any sense, Arga Veda doesn't make any sense. And the Bhagavatam even touches on them. And it gives the perspective, and once that's there, you can go into the details and stuff and keep it properly like that. You can develop Ayurveda, but it can be, Murari Gupta would cure his patients' spiritual problems along with their material problems. So, finishing off here, Hector Behar says in your periodical now, in the back you should have 5 pages, right? Okay. And those are the 5 institutes that you're going to partner with, right? So now we're examining each other. Is Neos going to partner with the Bhaktivedanta Vidyalaya? We're already we've almost got an agreement with the Bhaktivedanta Research Center. Because Hector is saying, this is a real management principle, really you can't work with more than 5 other organizations. If somebody comes to Neos and says, hey, I'm interested in Indian architecture, So we send them to Stapacham, right? Which is a very nice group, very nice, very compatible people like that and stuff. And they're life members, they like ISKCON, but they don't, okay, so let's work together and we'll start talking more about deeper ideas. So right now, we got some people interested in architecture. They have beautiful magazines. They're still working. Okay, you go there, somebody comes, we're interested in psychology, Indian psychology. Oh, then you work with our partner. So in their magazine, they give you a page in their magazine, and you give them a page in your magazine, and they said, that's it. And then you have, your working partners, and every periodical, you have a page and stuff where you're seeing what's going on. And they said, then you've covered all the bases and stuff. You say, yeah, now we're taking care of everything here. We're doing everything properly and stuff. And such from our general, Hector Behar. He used to shoot people. So, koi prashna hai?
Mechanism of psychology.
Huh?
Mechanism of psychology.
The mechanism?
Of psychology. You said psychology is very mechanical.
That was industrialization, trying to make everything into a machine. Making management into a machine, making chemistry into a machine. What is the Krebs free energy cycle? You have this big charts, right? With all the different reactions and the interfaces, and it's a machine. It's a chemical machine. This is how bread becomes, what is it called? Adenotriphosphate?
ATP.
Yeah, adenotriphosphate. This is how a piece of bread becomes adenotriphosphate, which your cells use. Okay. Yeah. So I was seeing this all, you're trying to industrialize everything. That was the process. Yeah, that's making up. And so in psychology, it was the same thing. In the beginning, it was woof, woof. Pavlov. And Pavlov, what did Pavlov do? He'd give the dog meat. And every time he gave the dog meat, he would
Conditioning.
ring a bell. Okay. So after a while, when he rang the bell with no meat, what would happen? The dog would salivate. So then he has, what do they call it? Conditioned responses? Conditioned responses. Okay, now we understand. The psychology and everything else, the mind is nothing but a collection of conditioned responses. And now we can reduce everybody down to So that went on. There's Skinner, there's rats. Yeah. But it didn't work. Behaviorism was the worst aspect of this is the whole history of psychology, but it didn't work. And so this didn't work. Any child knew more about psychology than a psychologist following this stuff. How people think and what's going on. When his mother was angry with him and how much he could get away with and stuff. Yeah. So then in 1975, there was a meeting in Caltech in Southern California. Many people there. Then they started the new cognitive sciences. And the cognitive sciences include stimulus response things, neurophysiology, and introspective psychology. That is permitted to examine your psychological process, what William James did. And it's okay, that's can be considered valid evidence that I think I had this experience. You can talk to people about their experiences and take that as information within the cognitive sciences. But we understand that that's just kind of a superficial thing. Ultimately, everything is nothing but an interaction of chemicals. And we can cure homosexuality with the proper pills. We can, psychiatry is the ultimate something, branch of psychology. Still there. Okay? Machine. Pills. Our founding director of NEOS, Dr. Ravi Prakash Singh at the Sundaras from Lucknow. He's head of geriatric psychiatry at the Plus Point Mental Hospital. Yes. And he said basically it's pills. Basically he deals with some like seven different pills. That's it. And how many people should take, and then he said there's no time whatsoever to deal with people personally. The way the whole system's set up, it's just horrible. People just they live longer, they don't go crazy, but it's that the quality of life is just horrible. They become vegetables and just So anyway, we're gonna be here for the next few days. Actually, we'll be in India until, in Govardhan and Radhakund until the 9th. You know. And we're interested, very Irish and stuff in the next few days, and so Sumanta Rupa is coming, you know, maybe a few days and stuff. We're talking about this, about, you know, working together then. Because I don't think you're planning on developing a gigantic archive with, you know, with thousands and with 40,000 original manuscripts and all this kind of stuff, you know. Maybe you are, I don't know. But that's okay, then will you handle the stuff? Yeah, we'll do that. Okay, then so you start to divide the work up, and somebody's doing the manuscript, you know, preservation and cataloging, and somebody else goes into, like, our area would be then psychology, right now. It depends on who's involved, you know, what their passions are, what their nature is, and so that's why. I found that what I could do with the Bhaktivedanta Institute, nobody else could do, is I could index the books. Right? Nobody else could do it, because I had physical sciences, life sciences, and psychology, and we were dealing with these things, and everybody else was so specialized, they didn't know the terminology or anything else for anybody else's field. So I would sit there like, you know, I knew enough where I could put in, make up the index of that and stuff. And they were all humbled. Well, all right, you're a good indexer. But you don't know about, what do you call it, you know, genotype so and so and so and so. So anyway, more questions or comments? The next question is, when is breakfast? Do you serve hot food? Yes, we serve hot food. That's okay, it is the ultimate question.
One little thing, Ganapati Swami spent years traveling to different college campuses in the United States, distributing Prabhupada's books.
Yeah.
And one line was one of his favorites in speaking to students. He would say, "Don't let a college career get in the way of your education." And students, like, I would watch students, he would say that, and they go, yeah, and then they go, yeah, what? That makes so much sense.
No.
And it would separate, some students wouldn't get it.
Yeah.
He would say, why are you here? He said, I'm here for a job.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get an education, get a job.
Yeah.
And the other students would hear that, it would make so much sense to them. They'd say, yeah, I've been thinking about this. I'm taking all these courses, but I don't feel educated as a result. So how can I get educated? And then you give them the Gita.
Super. So everybody find, you know, I don't think he did do any classroom programs.
Yes.
He did those also.
Yeah.
A lot of his things, he would just sit down on the campus, like on a bench where some people went by with a stack of books that wouldn't get permission or anything else, but just naturally people were just kind of like, and stuff, and you just start, you know, talking about it. He ended up in Vijay, big book distributor. We used the pictures. He would stop people and, you know, show the pictures and stuff. And so Prabhupada says every salesman has his own technique. Every salesman has his own technique. You look at other people, you steal ideas and stuff, but you have to develop your own way of communicating the Bhagavatam. So thank you all very much for stopping on time. Hare Krishna. Prabhupada ki jai.
Thank you very much.
Mahavir Jalaya ki jai.